The Grand Assembly Hall was the largest structure ever built by any species in the known galaxy. It floated in the empty space between three ancient star systems. A massive ring of metal and glass that held representatives from 347 different civilizations. Today, like every other day, the hall was filled with the sounds of 1,000 different languages, all translated instantly by machines that hummed quietly in the walls. Ambassador Vorik stood at the center of the speaking platform. He was tall, even for his kind. His 6 limbs clicked against the floor as he shifted his weight. His species, the Kelani, were known throughout the galaxy as warriors and conquerors. They had built an empire across 40 star systems, and they were proud of it. But today, Vorik was not proud. Today, he was desperate. Honored members of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice sharp and clear. I come before you to ask for help. My people are dying. High Chancellor Thorol leaned forward in his seat. He was old, even by the standards of his long-lived species. His 4 eyes blinked slowly as he studied the Kelani ambassador. Speak, Ambassador. The council listens. Vorik took a deep breath. For 73 galactic cycles, a plague has spread through our empire. It started in our outer colonies and moved inward. Our doctors cannot stop it. Our scientists cannot understand it. Millions have died. Millions more will die if we do not find a cure. A murmur passed through the assembly. Disease was a common enemy. Many species had faced plagues before. Some had even been wiped out entirely. We are sorry for your suffering, Chancellor Thorol said. But why do you bring this matter to the full council? Surely this is a medical issue, not a political one. Vorik hesitated. His mandibles clicked nervously. Because, Chancellor, we believe the plague is not natural. We believe it was created. As a weapon. The murmur grew louder. Biological weapons were forbidden by galactic law. To use one was considered the worst crime possible. That is a serious accusation, Thorol said slowly. Do you have evidence? I do. Vorik straightened his body, trying to look confident. The plague first appeared exactly 73 cycles ago. It appeared in the soldiers who returned from a military operation. A minor territorial expansion toward the outer spiral arm of the galaxy. In the far corner of the assembly hall, a human woman sat quietly. Her name was Nari. She was small compared to most of the aliens around her. Her dark hair was pulled back from her face, and her eyes were calm and watchful. She was the official observer for Earth, a planet that had only recently been allowed to send a representative to the council. Next to her sat a man with silver-streaked hair. His name was Sun Wu, and he was a military admiral. He had been assigned to protect Nari. Though most species in the galaxy thought humans needed no protection, they were wrong about many things, but not about that. Sun Wu glanced at Nari as Vorik continued speaking. She gave a tiny shake of her head. Not yet. The operation was simple, Vorik explained. We identified a small planet in an unremarkable star system. The inhabitants were primitive. They had not yet developed faster than light travel. They had barely reached their own moon. We sent a fleet of 200 warships to claim the planet and its resources. Chancellor Thorol's hands tightened on the arms of his chair. Which planet? Vorik waved one of his limbs dismissively. A small blue world. The natives called it Earth. The translation machines hummed. The word Earth echoed through the hall in 347 different languages, and then there was silence. Nari watched as every single delegate in the massive chamber stopped moving, stopped talking, stopped breathing. She had seen fear before. She had seen terror, but she had never seen anything like this. High Chancellor Thorol's face changed color. His 4 eyes went wide, and his hands began to shake. Beside him, his advisors looked at each other with expressions of pure horror. In the front row, a crystalline being named Prin sat motionless. Prin's species was ancient. They had existed for millions of years. They were known for being calm, logical, and emotionless. But now, for the first time anyone could remember, Prin's crystal body began to vibrate with what could only be fear. Vorik looked around the chamber, confused. Is something wrong? It was just a primitive planet. They had no defenses, no fleet, No advanced weapons. No one answered him. We did lose some ships, Vorik admitted. The natives were more aggressive than we expected. They fought back with crude weapons, explosives, projectiles, chemical fires. They even crashed their own aircraft into our vessels. It was surprising. But we destroyed their cities. We burned their lands. We killed millions of them. Still, no one spoke. Chancellor Thorol finally found his voice. It was barely a whisper. How many ships returned? Vorik's mandibles clicked with annoyance. 3. Only 3 ships made it back. The humans were more difficult than we anticipated. But that is not the point. The point is that every soldier on those 3 ships became sick within days of returning home. They all died. And then the plague began to spread. You attacked Earth, Thorol said. It was not a question. Yes, it was a minor operation, hardly worth mentioning. But clearly, the humans used some kind of biological weapon on our soldiers. This is a war crime. We demand justice. We demand that the Council force the humans to give us the cure. Thorol closed all 4 of his eyes. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy with something that sounded like grief. You fool. You absolute fool. Vorik stepped back, shocked. Excuse me? You have no idea what you have done. Thorol opened his eyes and looked directly at Nari. Observer. Did you know about this? Every eye in the chamber turned to the small human woman in the corner. Nari stood slowly. She smoothed her simple gray uniform and looked around the room at the hundreds of terrified faces. Then she smiled. It was a small smile, but it made several delegates physically move away from her. Yes, Chancellor, she said. Her voice was soft, but the translation machines carried it to every corner of the hall. We knew. And the plague? The disease that has killed millions of Kelani? Nari's smile did not change. That is not a plague, Chancellor. That is a reminder. Admiral Sun Wu stood beside her. His hands clasped behind his back. His face showed nothing, but his eyes were cold and hard, like stones at the bottom of a frozen river. Ambassador Vorik's confident posture crumbled. For the first time, he looked truly afraid. What? What do you mean? What have you done to us? Nari looked at him with something that might have been pity, or might have been contempt. It was hard to tell with humans. You came to our home, she said quietly. You burned our cities. You killed our children. Did you really think we would simply forget? The silence in the Grand Assembly Hall was absolute. 347 species waited for what would come next, and in the far corner of the chamber, a small human woman held the fate of an entire empire in her hands. The silence lasted for exactly 93 seconds. In the history of the Galactic Council, no silence had ever lasted so long. There had been wars declared in this chamber, there had been empires dissolved and species condemned, but nothing had ever made the Council go quiet like this. Ambassador Vorik looked around desperately. His 6 limbs trembled. He did not understand. He was a conqueror. He had led armies. He had destroyed worlds. Why were these powerful beings looking at him like he was already dead? This is absurd, he finally said, his voice cracking. They are primitives. They cannot even travel between stars. How can you all be afraid of them? The crystalline delegate Prin rose from his seat. Prin had not spoken in the council chamber for 40 cycles. His species communicated through vibrations in their crystal bodies, and speaking aloud was difficult for them. But now, Prin's entire form rang like a bell, as he said one word. Fools. Vorik turned to face him. What did you say? Fools, Prin repeated. Your entire species. Fools. The crystal being turned to face the rest of the council. I warned the founders of this council 12,000 cycles ago. I told them to mark the Sol system as forbidden. I told them what lived there. But they did not listen. They thought I was being dramatic. What are you talking about? Vorik demanded. High Chancellor Thorol raised a trembling hand. Enough, Ambassador. You will be silent now. You have said quite enough. He turned to face the human delegation. Observer Nari, please. Help us understand. Nari remained standing. Admiral Sun Wu stood beside her like a statue made of iron. She looked at the Chancellor with calm, dark eyes. What would you like to know, Chancellor? Everything. How long have you known about us? About the galactic community? Nari tilted her head slightly. We captured our first alien spacecraft 67 years ago. Earth years, not galactic cycles. It crashed in a remote area of our planet. We kept it secret. We studied it. We learned. A gasp went through the assembly. 67 years. The humans had known about alien life for 67 years and had said nothing. Why did you not contact us? Thoril asked. We were not ready, Nari said simply. And more importantly, we did not trust you. We watched. We listened. We intercepted your communications and learned your languages. We studied your histories and your wars. And we prepared. Prepared for what? Nari's smile returned. It was not a warm smile. For exactly what happened 73 cycles ago. For the day when someone would be foolish enough to attack us. Ambassador Vorik slammed one of his limbs against the speaking platform. This is ridiculous. You are a tiny, weak species on a tiny, weak planet. You have no fleet, no weapons, no technology. How could you possibly threaten us? Admiral Sunwoo spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the hall like thunder. We have something better than technology, Ambassador. We have patience. And we have memory. What does that mean? Sunwoo stepped forward. Let me tell you what happened 73 years ago. Your fleet entered our atmosphere. 200 warships against a planet that had never seen an alien before. You expected us to surrender, to fall on our knees and beg for mercy. You should have, Vorik muttered. Instead, Sunwoo continued, ignoring him. We fought. Every nation on our planet stopped fighting each other and turned their weapons against you. Farmers picked up rifles. Children threw stones. Old women set fire to your soldiers. We crashed planes into your ships. We poisoned our own water supplies so your troops could not drink. We destroyed our own cities rather than let you take them. The chamber was utterly silent. Many species had faced the Kelani in battle. None had fought like this. But that was not all, Sunwoo said. While our soldiers died in the streets, our scientists worked. Within hours of your arrival, we had captured alien bodies. Within days, we understood your biology. Within months, we had created something special. Vorik's mandibles went still. The plague. Not a plague, Nari said softly. A message. She stepped forward, and several delegates actually moved their chairs backward. A species that had 4 arms and stood 3 meters tall flinched away from a human woman who barely reached their chest. Our scientists created a virus, Nari explained. It was designed specifically for Kelani biology. It spreads easily. It lives in your bodies for years without causing any harm. And then, when we choose, it activates. When you choose. Vorik's voice was barely a whisper now. Yes. The virus responds to a signal, a specific frequency that we control. We can activate it whenever we want. We can make it kill quickly or slowly. We can target specific individuals or entire populations. We can even cure it completely. She paused. We let it sleep for 73 cycles. We wanted to see if you would figure it out. We wanted to see if you would come back. We wanted to know if you had learned anything. And now? Thoril asked, his voice shaking. And now? Nari said. Your ambassador has just admitted to the entire Galactic Council that his species committed an act of war against Earth. An unprovoked invasion of a peaceful planet. The murder of millions of innocent people. She looked at Vorik with those calm, dark eyes. So now we must decide what to do. Vorik fell to his knees. His limbs collapsed beneath him. Please, he begged, please. We did not know. We did not understand. You did not care. Sunwoo corrected him. You saw a weak planet and you attacked. You did not ask questions. You did not seek peace. You came to conquer and enslave. We can pay reparations. We can give you anything you want. Technology, resources, territory. Just please, stop the plague. Stop killing my people. Nari looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at the rest of the council. 347 species watched her with fear and fascination. I want every species in this chamber to understand something, she said slowly. Humanity does not want war. We have had enough war among ourselves to last 1,000 lifetimes. We have burned our own cities and killed our own brothers. We know what war costs." She paused. "But we also know what happens when you show weakness to predators, when you beg for mercy from those who have none. So we made a choice. We chose to be the kind of species that no one would ever dare attack again." Prin's crystal body rang softly. "The humans learned the same lesson we learned long ago. The universe does not reward kindness. It rewards strength. Not just strength," Nari said. "Memory. We remember every wrong done to us, every attack, every betrayal, and we respond. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, we always respond." High Chancellor Thorol lowered his head. "What do you want from us, Observer Nari?" Nari turned to face him. "I want the Council to acknowledge what the Kelani did. I want a formal declaration that their invasion was a war crime, and I want every species in this galaxy to understand one simple truth." "What truth?" Nari's voice was soft, but it echoed through the chamber like a bell. "Earth remembers." She sat back down. Admiral Sun Wu sat beside her. And in the Grand Assembly Hall, 347 species began to truly understand what kind of neighbors they had in the small blue planet called Earth. The Kelani ambassador remained on his knees, weeping. He had come to this chamber seeking justice. Instead, he had learned that his species had been living on borrowed time for 73 years, and the humans, those tiny, weak, primitive creatures, had been watching them die. Waiting, remembering. The universe suddenly seemed much smaller and much more dangerous. High Chancellor Thorol stood on shaking legs. His advisors reached out to steady him, but he waved them away. He was old, but he was not weak. Not yet. He had a duty to perform. "Council members," he announced, his voice stronger now. "I must show you something that has been hidden from most of you for thousands of cycles." He turned to the center of the chamber, where a pillar of light appeared. "Archivist. Unseal File 001. Authorization. Thorol Prime." The pillar of light flickered and changed color. A voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was the voice of the Archivist, an artificial intelligence older than most civilizations in the galaxy. File 001. Classification. Absolute Forbidden. Title. Sol System. Exclusion Zone. Warning. This file contains information that may cause psychological distress. Do you wish to proceed? "Yes," Thorol said heavily. "Proceed." The lights in the chamber dimmed. A holographic display appeared above the speaking platform, showing a small yellow star orbited by 8 planets. The third planet was highlighted in red. "Earth," the Archivist began. "Third planet of the Sol System. Gravity, 1 standard. Atmosphere, nitrogen-oxygen mix. Native intelligent species, Homo sapiens. Classification, Apex Adaptive Predator." Ambassador Vorik looked up from his knees. "Apex Predator. They have no claws. No armor. No venom." "Correct," the Archivist replied. "Humans possess none of the standard predator characteristics. They are physically weak compared to most intelligent species. They have no natural weapons. They cannot survive in extreme temperatures. They require frequent rest and sustenance. Then how can they be apex predators?" The Archivist paused. "Humans compensate for physical weakness through 3 traits that make them uniquely dangerous. First, adaptability. Humans can survive in any environment. They modify their bodies, their tools, and their surroundings to overcome any obstacle. Second, endurance. Humans do not stop. They will pursue a goal for years, decades, or generations. They do not forget. They do not give up. Third, cooperation. When threatened, humans unite against the common enemy with perfect efficiency. Internal conflicts are set aside until the external threat is eliminated. The holographic display changed. It now showed a timeline stretching back 12,000 cycles. Earth has been observed by galactic species for 12,000 cycles, the Archivist continued. In that time, 17 species have attempted to make contact with or conquer Earth. All 17 species are now extinct. A wave of shock passed through the chamber. Vorik looked like he had been struck. This cannot be true. Someone shouted from the upper galleries. It is true, the archivist replied calmly. The Vortan Collective attempted peaceful contact 8,000 cycles ago. They were absorbed into human society within 3 generations. Their culture, their language, their identity ceased to exist. They became human. The display showed images of the Vortan, a gentle species with soft features and large eyes. Then it showed their descendants, barely recognizable, living among humans on Earth. The Keth Empire attempted invasion 6,000 cycles ago. They were more successful than the Kelani. They occupied Earth for nearly 200 years. But the humans never stopped fighting. They poisoned water supplies. They sabotaged equipment. They assassinated commanders. Eventually, the occupation became too costly, and the Keth withdrew. Within 500 cycles, a plague of unknown origin destroyed the Keth homeworld. Vorik made a choking sound. The pattern repeats throughout history, the archivist said. Every species that has threatened Earth has been destroyed, not by military force, not by superior technology, but by patience, by adaptation, and by memory. High Chancellor Thorl stepped forward. This is why Earth was classified as an exclusion zone. This is why we have never made official contact. We hoped that if we left them alone, they would leave us alone. But we attacked them. Vorik whispered. We attacked them. The holographic display changed again. Now it showed Earth as it had been 73 cycles ago. Cities burning, ships falling from the sky, humans fighting with whatever weapons they could find. This is what happened, the archivist said. On the day the Kelani invaded, the scene shifted to a laboratory deep underground. A woman in a white coat worked frantically at a table covered with alien tissue samples. Her name was Taiwan, and she was one of the best scientists on Earth. The humans captured Kelani specimens within hours of the invasion, the archivist narrated. Dr. Taiwan led a team of researchers who worked without sleep to understand Kelani biology. They mapped the Kelani genome in 6 days. They identified weaknesses in 8 days. They began designing a weapon in 10 days. The display showed soldiers fighting in the streets of a burning city. A young officer named Ha Young led a group of civilians through the rubble, weapons in their hands. While the scientists worked, the military bought them time. Captain Ha Young organized resistance cells throughout the occupied zones. She coordinated attacks using primitive radio signals the Kelani could not detect. She taught farmers how to make explosives. She taught children how to hide and spy. She taught everyone how to fight. The display showed a Kelani soldier walking down a street, then suddenly falling as a bullet struck it from a hidden position. It showed a Kelani ship exploding, as a human pilot crashed a small aircraft into its engine. It showed humans setting fire to their own homes rather than let the enemy use them. The cost was enormous, the archivist said. 12 million humans died in the first month alone. Cities that had stood for centuries were reduced to rubble. But the humans did not surrender. They did not negotiate. They fought. Nari watched the display with unreadable eyes. She had seen these images before. Everyone on Earth had. They were shown in schools. They were broadcast on Memorial Days. They were burned into the memory of every human child. After 6 months, the archivist continued, the Kelani forces were reduced to 3 ships. They retreated, carrying wounded soldiers and samples of Earth life back to their homeworld. They did not know that those samples contained something special. The display showed tiny organisms, invisible to the naked eye, floating in the air and water. Dr. Taiwan's team created a virus unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was designed to spread easily but remain dormant indefinitely. It could pass from host to host for generations without causing any symptoms. And it was keyed to a specific signal. When that signal was broadcast, the virus would activate, and then it would kill. Ambassador Vorik stared at the display. You put this virus in everything? In the air? The water? The soil? Nari finally spoke. We put it in ourselves. Every human who came into contact with your soldiers carried the virus. When your ships retreated, They took pieces of us with them. Blood samples, tissue samples, even the air they breathed. All of it was infected, and you waited 73 years to activate it. We wanted to be sure, Nari said. We wanted to see if you would change, if you would become peaceful, if you would learn that conquest has consequences. She paused. You did not learn. The display faded. The lights in the chamber returned to normal. High Chancellor Thorol looked at the human delegation with something that might have been respect, or might have been fear. Probably both. And now? He asked. What happens now? Nari stood. She straightened her gray uniform and looked around the chamber at the hundreds of silent faces. Now, she said, we decide whether the Kelani live or die. The words hung in the air like a sentence from a judge, because that was exactly what they were. Admiral Sunwoo placed a hand on her shoulder. His face was still calm, still unreadable, but there was something in his eyes that looked almost like mercy. We are not monsters, he said quietly. We do not enjoy killing. We do not want to destroy the Kelani people. Then what do you want? Vorik begged. Sunwoo looked at him for a long moment. We want what we have always wanted. To be left alone. To live in peace. To raise our children without fear. And we want you to remember. Remember what? Remember what happens when you attack Earth. The chamber was silent. 347 species thought about their own histories, their own wars, their own plans, and many of them quietly began to reconsider. The Grand Assembly Hall had seen many historic moments. Treaties signed, wars ended, empires born and destroyed. But nothing compared to what was happening now. A new holographic image appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a human man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He wore a dark uniform covered in medals and ribbons that no alien could identify. His face was calm, almost peaceful. But there was steel beneath that peace. Members of the Galactic Council, he said, his voice clear and steady. My name is Junho. I am the director of Earth's Interstellar Defense Initiative. I speak with the full authority of the United Earth Government. Chancellor Thorol bowed his head slightly. Director Junho, thank you for joining us. I wish the circumstances were different. Junho replied. But we have waited a long time for this moment. We knew it would come eventually. We just did not know when. Ambassador Vorik had managed to get back on his feet. His limbs still trembled. But pride forced him to stand. You speak of defense, he said bitterly. But what you have done is an attack. You have killed millions of my people. Junho turned to look at him. There was no anger in his eyes. No hatred. Just a terrible, patient sadness. Your people killed 12 million of mine in 3 months, he said quietly. Civilians. Children. Elderly. You burned hospitals and schools. You destroyed temples and libraries. You erased cities that had existed for thousands of years. He paused. We have killed far fewer of you. And we did it over 73 years. Slowly. Carefully. With precision. That makes it better? No. It makes it proportional. The word hung in the air. Proportional. The Kelani had killed 12 million humans in a sudden, brutal attack. The humans had killed millions of Kelani over decades, through a weapon that could not be stopped or understood. Neither side was innocent, but one side had started it. A young Kelani stood behind Ambassador Vorik. He was the ambassador's assistant, barely old enough to serve in government. His name was not important, but his question was, can you stop it? He asked, his voice small. The plague. Can you really stop it? Nari turned to look at him. For a moment, her expression softened. He was young. He had not been alive when his people invaded Earth. He had done nothing wrong except be born into a civilization that had made a terrible choice. Yes, she said. We can stop it. The virus responds to a signal. If we broadcast the deactivation code, it will become dormant again. It will stop killing. Then please, the young Kalani begged. Please stop it. We have suffered enough. We have learned our lesson. Have you? Director Junho asked from his holographic projection. Have you truly learned? Ambassador Vorik lowered his head. For the first time, he looked not proud, not angry, but simply tired. What do you want from us? What will make this end? Junho folded his hands behind his back. 3 things. First, full reparations. You will pay for the rebuilding of every city you destroyed, every hospital, every school, every home. You will compensate the families of every person you killed. Vorik nodded slowly. We can do this. It will take time, but we can do this. Second, Junho continued, you will issue a formal apology. Not a private statement, not a diplomatic note, a public declaration, broadcast to every species in this galaxy, admitting what you did and acknowledging that it was wrong. This was harder. The Kelani were proud. They did not apologize. They had built an empire on strength and conquest. Admitting weakness, admitting error, went against everything they believed. But Vorik nodded again. We will do this. Third, Junho's voice became very quiet. You will tell everyone what happens when you attack Earth. You will become our messengers. Wherever your ships travel, wherever your people go, you will spread the word. Earth is not to be touched. Earth is protected. Earth remembers. The chamber was absolutely silent. This was not just a demand for justice. This was a demand for submission. The Kelani, one of the most feared empires in the galaxy, would become walking warnings, living proof of what happened to those who threatened humanity. You want us to be afraid, Vorik said slowly. You want the whole galaxy to be afraid. Nari stood and walked toward him. She was so small compared to the Kelani. She barely reached his middle limbs. But somehow, she seemed to fill the entire chamber with her presence. No, she said softly. We want you to be smart. Fear is temporary. It fades. But wisdom lasts. We want you and every species in this galaxy to understand that we are not prey. We are not victims. We are not targets. She paused and looked up at him with those dark, calm eyes. We are humans, and we protect our own. High Chancellor Thorol stood. The Council will now vote on the matter of Earth's status, all in favor of changing Earth's classification from exclusion zone to protected sovereign territory. Please indicate. The votes came immediately. 346 species voted in favor. Even the Kelani voted yes. They had no choice. The motion passes, Thorol announced. Earth is hereby recognized as a sovereign world with full diplomatic standing. Any attack on Earth will be considered an attack on the Galactic Council itself. It was done. In a single session. Humanity had gone from a forgotten primitive species to one of the most protected civilizations in the galaxy. Not because they were loved, not because they were trusted, but because they were feared. Director Junho allowed himself a small smile. Thank you, Chancellor. We look forward to peaceful relations with all species in the galaxy. And the plague? Vorik asked desperately. Will you deactivate it? Junho looked at him for a long moment. The deactivation signal has already been sent. The virus will become dormant within the next few days. Your people will stop dying. Vorik collapsed with relief. His assistant caught him before he could fall. But understand this. Junho continued. The virus is still there. It will always be there. Inside every Kelani who ever came into contact with anything from Earth, inside their children and their children's children. It sleeps now, but we can wake it up whenever we choose. You would hold this over us forever? Forever is a long time, Nari said. Let us start with a few centuries and see how things go. The young Kelani assistant looked at her with something strange in his eyes. Not fear exactly, something more complicated. Why? He asked. Why did you not simply destroy us? You had the power. You had the right. Why show mercy? Nari considered the question carefully. Because we have learned something in our 200,000 years of existence. Revenge feels good, but it does not solve problems. Destruction is easy, but creation is better. We could have wiped out your species, but then we would be alone with our anger, our grief, and our memories. She looked around the chamber at the hundreds of watching faces. We do not want to be alone. We do not want to be feared. We want to be part of this galactic community. We want to trade, to learn, to share. But we needed you to understand something first. What? Nari smiled. And for the first time, It was almost warm, that we are worth respecting, that our lives matter, that we will not be victims. She reached out and touched the young Kilani's arm. It was a gentle gesture, almost maternal. Your people made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but mistakes can be forgiven. What matters is what you do next. The young Kilani stared at her. In that moment, he understood something that his ancestors had failed to understand. Humans were not just dangerous. They were not just patient and vengeful and adaptive. They were also capable of forgiveness, of hope, of change, and that, perhaps, was the most terrifying thing of all, because a species that could create a galaxy-spanning plague and then choose not to use it was something entirely new, something the universe had never seen before, and no one quite knew what to make of it. 6 months passed quickly in the galaxy. Wars were fought and ended. Treaties were signed and broken. Stars were born and died. But one thing remained constant. Everyone was talking about Earth. The Grand Assembly Station had changed. A new section had been added to the massive orbital structure, connected to the main ring by a bridge of gleaming metal and transparent crystal. Above the entrance, letters spelled out words in 347 languages. They all said the same thing. Embassy of Earth. Inside, the embassy was beautiful. Plants from Earth grew in carefully designed gardens. Water flowed through artificial streams. The air smelled of flowers and grass and something indefinably human. It was designed to make visitors feel welcome, to show them that humanity was more than just a threat, but the visitors were not fooled. They knew what humans were capable of. Today was the official opening ceremony. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered in the main hall. Some came out of curiosity. Some came out of respect. Most came out of fear. Ambassador Do-hyun stood at the podium. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and gray temples. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. He had studied every species in the galaxy. He had learned their languages, their customs, their histories. He wanted peace. He had always wanted peace, but he was also a human, which meant he was prepared for war. Friends, he began, his voice warm and welcoming. Thank you for joining us today. This is a historic moment for Earth and for the galaxy. For the first time in our history, we are officially part of the galactic community. The audience listened politely. Some of them shifted nervously in their seats. I know many of you are afraid of us. Do-hyun continued. I understand why. We have shown you what we can do when threatened. We have demonstrated that we are not victims. We are not prey. He paused. But we are also not monsters. He gestured to the gardens around him. Look at this place. Look at what we have created. Humans do not only know how to destroy. We know how to build, to grow, to nurture. For every weapon we have created, we have also created 1,000 works of art. For every war we have fought, we have also built 1,000 hospitals. The audience began to relax slightly. Some of them looked at the flowers with new interest. Humanity has a complicated history, Do-hyun admitted. We have done terrible things to each other. We have fought wars over land, over religion, over ideas. We have hurt each other in ways that would horrify most species in this galaxy. He smiled sadly. But we have also loved each other, protected each other, sacrificed ourselves for each other. That is what makes us human. Not our weapons, not our viruses, but our capacity for both destruction and creation. In the front row, former High Chancellor Thorol listened quietly. He had retired after the council session 6 months ago. The stress had been too much for his old body, but he had insisted on attending this ceremony. He needed to see what the humans would do with their new power. Beside him sat Nari, no longer an observer but now a full ambassador herself. She wore formal robes instead of her simple gray uniform, but her eyes were the same. Calm, watchful, patient. We do not seek to conquer, Do-hyun said. We have no interest in building an empire. We have seen what empires do, both in your history and in our own. They rise and they fall. They cause suffering and then they crumble. We want something different. What do you want? A delegate called out from the audience. Do-hyun smiled. We want friends. We want trading partners. We want teachers and students. We want to learn from you and share what we know. We want to be part of something larger than ourselves." He paused and looked directly at the Kalani delegation. Ambassador Vorik was no longer among them. He had been quietly removed from his position after the council session. In his place sat a younger Kalani, one who had never known war with Earth. "We even want to forgive," Dohyun said. "Not forget. Never forget. But forgive. Because holding on to anger is exhausting, and we have better things to do with our energy." The ceremony continued. There were speeches from other delegates, formal exchanges of gifts, promises of future cooperation. It was all very civilized, very diplomatic, but beneath the surface, everyone could feel the tension. The galaxy was still adjusting to the new reality. Earth was still dangerous, still unpredictable, still terrifying, but perhaps, just perhaps, they could also be trusted. After the ceremony, Thorol approached Nari. She was standing by a window, looking out at the stars. Earth was visible in the distance, a tiny blue dot against the infinite darkness. "It was a good speech," Thorol said. Nari nodded without looking at him. "Dohyun is a good man. He means every word. And you? Do you mean it?" Nari turned to face him. "I want peace, Chancellor. I have always wanted peace. But I also remember what your galaxy did to my people. I remember the burning cities, the mass graves, the children crying for parents who would never come home. So you will never truly trust us." "No." Nari shook her head. "I will trust individuals. I will trust those who prove themselves worthy of trust. But I will never trust blindly. I will never assume that peace is permanent. I will always be ready for the next attack." Thorol sighed. "That is a sad way to live, perhaps. But it is also realistic." Nari looked back at Earth. "Do you know what that planet has taught us, Chancellor? It has taught us that the universe does not care about fairness. It does not care about justice. It does not care about right and wrong. The universe simply exists, and it is up to us to survive in it. And you have survived. We have survived everything. Ice ages, plagues, asteroids, wars, invasions." She smiled slightly. "We will survive this too." Across the embassy, a young woman named Seojin was talking with delegates from other species. She was barely 20 years old. One of the youngest diplomats Earth had ever sent to the stars. She had grown up after the invasion, learning about it only from history books and memorial services. To her, the Kelani were not enemies. They were just another species trying to find their place in the universe. "Is it true that humans eat other animals?" a young insectoid asked her. Fascinated and horrified in equal measure, Seojin laughed. "Some of us do, yes. But many of us have stopped. We are learning to be better. And the virus? The plague that killed the Kelani? Could you use it on us?" The question hung in the air. Several nearby delegates stopped their conversations to listen. Seojin considered her answer carefully. The virus was designed specifically for Kelani biology. It would not work on any other species. She paused. "But yes, if someone attacked Earth, we would find a way to respond. We would protect ourselves and our children. That is what any species would do." The young insectoid thought about this. "But you would not attack first?" "No, we would never attack first. We are not conquerors, we are defenders." Sojin smiled gently. "All we ask is that you leave us in peace. That is all we have ever asked." Meanwhile, far away on the Kelani homeworld, a child was recovering in a hospital bed. She was young, barely old enough to understand what had happened to her people. She only knew that she had been very sick, and now she was getting better. A package had arrived for her. It came from Earth, from a school full of human children who had heard about the plague and wanted to help. Inside the package was a paper crane, folded from bright-colored paper. A note was attached, written in simple words that had been translated into Kelani. "We forgive. We remember. We hope." The child did not understand what these words meant. She did not know about the war, or the plague, or the terrible history between her people and the humans. She only knew that someone far away had taken the time to make something beautiful for her. She held the paper crane up to the light, watching how the colors shifted and changed. It was delicate, fragile, easily destroyed. But it was also beautiful. and it had survived a journey across the stars to reach her. Perhaps, she thought, there was hope after all. Back on the Grand Assembly Station, Ambassador Do-hyun finished shaking hands with the last delegate. He was tired but satisfied. The day had gone well. Better than he had hoped. Nari appeared beside him. "You did well," she said. "Thank you." He looked out at the dispersing crowd. "Do you think they will ever truly accept us? Some will, some will not. That is the nature of the universe." She placed a hand on his arm. "All we can do is keep trying, keep reaching out, keep hoping, and keep preparing." Nari smiled, that small, knowing smile that had terrified an entire galaxy. Always. The embassy lights dimmed as the ceremony ended. Outside, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the small creatures who lived among them. Wars would be fought. Empires would rise and fall. Species would be born and die. But somewhere in the darkness, on a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, humanity continued to survive, to adapt, to remember, and the galaxy, for the first time in its long history, watched them with something new in its eyes, not just fear, but wonder.